You owe back taxes to the IRS or state, and you're looking for solutions to deal with the debt. Maybe you could afford to pay the tax itself, but the interest and penalties have made it unmanageable. There's no way you can pay all of it. But how do you get the IRS to remove the penalties? That's the topic of today's video on the other side of the break.
1-877 Levy King, Levy Levy King, 1-877 Levy King, LevyKing.com.
Owe back taxes to the IRS? Call the Levy King. He's the best. 877 Levy King, LevyKing.com.
1-877 Levy King, LevyKing.com.
What's up, guys? It's Corey Hankerson here from Legacy Tax, and they call me the Levy King because I've helped thousands of clients with unfiled returns, back taxes, tax liens, and that's right, IRS levies. If the IRS took your check, the Levy King will get it back. 1-877 Levy King, LevyKing.com. I'm also the author of End the Tax Nightmare: Insider Secrets to Beat the IRS and Reduce Your Tax Debt. Inside the book, I'll show you how to stop levies, liens, and garnishments without paying the tax in full, how to set up the payment plan that you want and not the one that they want, and how to potentially settle your tax debt for less than you actually owe. My book has been a top seller on Amazon for years, and you can buy it right now for $19.99. But I want to give you a copy of the book absolutely free. Just go over to my website, www.endthetaxnightmare.com, enter your name and email, and I'll send you a copy right away. No charge, not even for shipping, totally free. Before we go any further with today's video, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and hit the notification bell so you'll get a heads up each time we drop a new video. Okay, guys, let's dive into today's content. Have you ever taken a moment to look at your tax transcript? If you had, you might have noticed that the IRS charges significant penalties and even interest on top of the penalties. I've seen so many occasions where the interest and penalties are about as much as the tax debt itself. This can make a situation go from bad to worse. Today, I'm going to break down a few of the strategies that we use to get the IRS to remove some of those penalties. The first strategy is called first-time penalty abatement, known as FTA. This is the quickest and easiest way to have penalties removed from your balance. You can request the FTA if your penalty was assessed for failure to pay, failure to file, or failure to deposit. You cannot request a first-time abatement if your penalty was assessed for what is called substantial understatement of tax, nor can you get an FTA for criminal penalties or certain civil penalties. In order to qualify for an FTA, you must meet these qualifications. The first is that you must have filed all required returns on time or be on an extension. The second, you must have paid the tax due or set up a payment plan on any tax that is currently due. And finally, you must have filed all your returns on time for the preceding 3 years. Now, because of the name first-time abatement, many people wonder how many times someone can request abatement. Can you request first-time abatement just once per lifetime, or can it be done more than once? In 2017, the IRS Office of General Counsel clarified this issue and made it clear that it is possible for the same taxpayer to receive multiple first-time abatements. For example, a taxpayer might receive first-time abatement for the tax year 2010, be compliant for tax years 2011 through 2014, and then receive an additional first-time abatement for tax year 2015. So it seems that first-time abatement can be done as often as every 4 years under the right circumstances. The next up is something called abatement for cause. If the IRS does not grant your request for first-time penalty abatement, or if you don't qualify, you'll need to request what is called abatement for cause. This is where most penalty abatements actually occur. Under abatement for cause, you have to file a formal written request with the IRS asking that the penalties be removed. With this, you're going to really need to think like a lawyer. Right? You've got to use thoughtful and persuasive legal arguments and strategies while referencing many of the quote unquote buzzwords found in the Internal Revenue Manual, which gives us many reasons why penalties can be abated for cause. Here are a few of those reasons. You got death of a family member, serious illness or of an immediate family member, especially if the taxpayer is the caregiver, mental illness, alcoholism, drug or gambling addiction, inability to obtain your records, believe it or not, is a good reason for penalty abatement. The next is fire, casualty, and natural disaster or other disturbances, right? The next one is bad advice from a tax advisor. Next, we have extended military service, which seems to be reasonable, right? Believe it or not, ignorance of the law is the next one. And then finally is forgetfulness. Now, I got to tell you, even though forgetfulness is right there in the IRM, I've never seen anyone get penalties abated because of forgetfulness. If you have, drop it down in the comments and let me know what you think about that. I've literally never heard of that happening, but it's right there in the IRM, so I guess it's allowable. You can apply for penalty abatement for reasonable cause by submitting Form 843 to the IRS. Be sure to cite every single reason that applies to your situation. It's always better to cite more IRM reasons than fewer reasons. This is because it is very unlikely that your initial request for abatement for cause will be granted. Forget about it. Your request is probably going to be denied, in which case you'll need to appeal the denial to have an IRS appeals officer decide your case. Appeals officers will usually only consider arguments made in the original request. So if it wasn't in your original request, it won't be heard on appeal. And appeals is by far your best option for receiving abatement for cause. Okay, a word of caution on penalty abatement. Before you go down the road of penalty abatement, you need to look over your balances and determine whether you'll be able to pay the tax after the IRS removes the penalties. If you still won't be able to pay the balance, even after the penalties have been removed, you should probably consider an offer in compromise or a partial pay installment agreement instead of, in lieu of, in place of penalty abatement. Just don't bother, right? What I'm saying here is if they take off the penalties and you still won't be able to pay the tax, then don't worry about having the penalties removed. Just go straight to doing an offer or a partial pay. To understand what I mean, I want you to consider the story shared by one of my mentors. He tells a story about a client of his who owed over $100,000 in tax debt, of which $35,000 was IRS penalties. He fought tooth and nail to have the IRS remove the penalties, and he finally got it removed. Then the client walks into his office and says, okay, great. Now let's do an offer in compromise. The problem is that the client now only owes $65,000 instead of $100,000. So when he did the OIC calculation, the client doesn't qualify because he can now pay the tax in full via an installment agreement, whereas he could not afford to pay the entire $100,000 via an installment agreement. So he previously qualified for an offer before they did the penalty abatement. If they had never done the abatement, the client would have gotten an offer for about $9,000. But now he doesn't qualify for an offer, so he'll need to pay the tax in full. My point is that even though penalty abatement is an excellent tool to resolve your tax debt, you'll need to do your OIC calculation first to make sure you're not trading dollars for dimes. Speaking of tax debt, I want you to know that there are special programs in place to help you get a fresh start. But how do you know if you qualify? You see, no two cases are exactly alike. So how do you know exactly how much you can settle for? Well, I've created a free tool to help you get qualified for a fresh start. Just head over to www.levyking.com or click the link below. Follow the prompts and answer a few simple questions, and we'll help you figure out your eligibility. That website again is www.levyking.com, or you can give us a call at 1-877-LEVY-KING. That number again, 1-877-LEVY-KING. That's it for this week, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.